Hello, everybody. This chilly Friday. I am very excited. I've got my friend Jo Weinberg, who is a cookery writer and an author, with fantastic chef Nicole Pisani, Chefs in Schools. And they're both going to talk to me about chefs in schools and their new book. And there's
Hi,
Nicole.
hi everyone.
I think she can see
Hi.
me. Hi, Nicole. I've accepted Jo's request lots of times. Hopefully she's going to join us. You have no request. Jo's just about to join, is she? Invite. There we are. Got your wonderful book, Feed Your Family. Is your Wi-Fi okay,
I
Nicole?
think so, yes. It should be. It's just a weird.
Says Jo Weinberg is unable to join. Hello, everybody's joining. You know this nightmare at the beginning, don't you?
Hi.
There's Jo. Lovely. We're here. So, first of all, I'd love you. I mean, I've introduced you briefly. Jo is a cookery writer and an author, and Nicole, whose Wi-Fi isn't brilliant, as a fantastic chef. But maybe you could introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you hope for this amazing new cookbook, Feed Your Family. Exciting recipes
Well,
from
I'll make a
chefs in
start
schools.
while Nicole is figuring out her Wi-Fi. Thank you so much for having us on, Julia. It's lovely.
It's lovely.
So Chefs in Schools was a project that was born actually as long ago as 8 years. I'm Joanna Weinberg. I'm a cookery writer and your friend and
my
a
friend.
columnist. I've written about mostly my passion is around gathering people around the table and the importance of what happens on a human level around a really good plate of food. And Nicole, do you want to introduce yourself? You've arrived.
Perfect timing, I would say. So yeah, hi, I'm Nicole. I co-founded Chefs in Schools with Henry Dimbleby and Louise Nichols and co-authored Feed Your Family with Jo.
That's so lovely. Should we talk about Chefs in Schools first? And everybody who's joined us, do please ask questions from Jo and Nicole about feeding your family, about children and food. But do you want to tell us about Chefs in Schools, and then we'll talk about your
Jo, do you want to start?
Okay, I'm happy to. So
Good.
Nicole, amidst a storm of press about 8 years ago, walked out, I was going to say, but she finished a much beloved job as head chef at Nopi, Ottolenghi's Mayfair restaurant, to take up the role as the head chef at Gayhurst Primary, which was Henry Dimbleby's children's school, and I think really set fire to a whole new movement around improving school food and creating joyful connections with food, for children with food. And I'll let her talk about that in more detail. I got involved in the project when she realized that if she could do this amazing thing in one school, could she do it in every school. Every child deserves brilliant, exciting and imaginative, joyful food. So I came on board to try and figure out how to help her do that.
And Nicole, I mean, from what I read in your book, you know, you've always really loved food and were brought up with amazing kind of fresh food from your mum, and that you ate food at home at lunchtime. But it sounded to me like you wanted to do something meaningful with that passion and knowledge with food.
So correct. I grew up in Malta, and I always say that I didn't realize that you can have fish without bones till I came here. I spent all my childhood just crying over whole fish. And then over here I realized, oh my God, you can actually have fish without bones. But coming again, I guess, to the question, it's more about it originally it was me wanting to do something meaningful, but it was also about creating a good relationship with food from a young age, which was really important. And that ended up being what we realized we do as a charity. It's apart from it's the obvious, which is feeding kids that one meal, which for a lot of kids is one hot meal a day. But it was more about building a good relationship around food and knowing where food comes from and, you know, enjoying it as well as using it for sustenance. And that, I guess, is what we try and do with every school that we work with. We try and get kids excited about cooking over fire or, you know, growing mushrooms in the classrooms. So it is about the relationship with food as well as feeding kids well.
And from, you know, my experience as a therapist and the kind of foundation stones of, you know, I don't like using health in relation to food because it sounds kind of a bit punitive, but having a kind of warm, loving relationship with food, which is going to be your mainstay of both your physical or a mainstay of your physical and your mental health through your life, is set in your childhood. You know, the habits and the behaviors that you witness both at home and in schools are the habits that will inhabit you going into your present and your future, so that they couldn't be more crucial for children. And so what were you hoping to do in relation to that with this fantastic book, which I love everything about it, its design, its recipes, your passion, and the meaning of it just feels so important. How was it writing it? What do you want people to find in it?
Joe, I think we fit. It's been a 5-year project, and it's basically does show the journey of the relationships, and it shows, you know, the sort of people that are behind, you know, with a great team, loads of school chefs that contribute recipes. But I think, Joe, the writing of it, that comes down to you, because I literally just wrote recipes on cards and it turned up into a book.
I think that was the thing. When we first were approached to do the book, I said to Nicole, okay, so great. So where are the recipes? And she said, oh, well, we've got a Rolodex in Gayhurst, but I know that there's a paper about, and you should know that actually every recipe is written to feed 450. So, and obviously it's quite a big thing to change recipes of that volume and make them work for the home. But I think what we really wanted the spirit of it to be is not just a collection of really inspiring recipes, because they are not recipes filled with fear. They have miso and kimchi and pickles, and we cook over fire, and we
exciting, kind of colourful, exciting, exotic in some way.
It's inspired by, from one end, our amazing professional patrons and trustees like Thomasina Myers and Yota Motolengi. But equally important are the recipes from the home kitchens of Susu, who's one of the chefs at Gayhurst, who's been in the kitchen team for, I don't know, what, 15 years. Her Moroccan chicken, which is something she cooks for her family at home. We have Tony's jollof rice, which has now gone to so many schools, because who doesn't love jollof rice? So it really is a collection of incredibly diverse recipes from very diverse kitchens that have all contributed to the Chefs in Schools story, and that have all, in one way or another, touched children or changed the way that children interact with food. And I think one of the important things is that whilst, you know, we talk about joy, and, you know, underpinning the whole project is absolutely health. It's the mainstay of everything, but we don't talk about that really. We try as little as possible to talk about the healthy plate or what is protein, or, you know, because
that's like a stick you're beating people with.
I think it really is. And you know, when children come in, one of the patterns that Nicole established in the dining hall is that when they come in at the beginning of lunch, there are always these big sharing plates of something interesting on the table. I know that I've just seen in the Instagram stream today, there are little sushi rolls, vegetable sushi rolls. They might be just a bowl of really bright red, shiny cherry tomatoes, or it could be a whole roast cauliflower that the children can cut into themselves. And I think all of this is just a way to engage and inspire and create interest and drama and joy and all of those things, which then feeds into this great relationship with food that we hope they will take on with them and learn to cook for themselves, because we take charge of the cookery education at the schools as well.
And in a way, you know, from the soggy cabbage that Nicole saw that smelt absolutely disgusting when she went round the school, to this joyous kind of multicolored, flavoursome sharing of food, it kind of frees you, doesn't it? It's quite liberating, Nicole, isn't it? From the kind of dank relationship with food. It's quite kind of liberating.
It is liberating. And I think a lot of like the conversation around mental health, like we have to understand that, you know, food does bring us joy. And this is what we fundamentally say, like, you know, we cook food, it's made with love. And that brings joy to the teams that are cooking it and to the children. And, you know, when we talk about mental health in the workplace, I think it's all about this. It's enjoying something that you do and giving, you know, as a chef, you say you become a chef because you want to show people you care through feeding them. So if it's a way of loving and showing that you love someone if you want to feed them well. But also it's the teams that actually enjoy what they cook. And this was fundamental when we realized, you know, let's not give them recipes that we want them to be cooking. Let them cook what they cook for their families, and we'll just show them how to scale it up. So if they're cooking for 4, which is something I had to learn, please note. I mean, I went from, I always joke that I went from making food look pretty for a whole year to realizing I had to literally said yes to a job and cooked for 600, and there was no one that could actually, I was like, anyway, it was one of those moments which I clearly remember. But what I'm trying to say is that when you enjoy doing something, then someone
else will enjoy it too, I would say.
Yes, you got it. But also because from the kind of mental health perspective, and children, young people, all of us learn from your behavior and what they observe, not from what you say. So that if you're showing energy and excitement and passion and pleasure in food as the chef, then that is what's transmitted to the children, and that's what they'll pick up. We've lost Nicole, but there's a question here from Sasha, Joe. This isn't meant to be controversial, but I've just been plant-based for 2 years. And I wonder, do you see our broader society moving away from animal agriculture towards more plant-based?
Well, I mean, what I can talk about is, I mean, I think that is the general trend of things. What we have done in our schools is take the whole school plant-based 2 days a week. And we do that partly to make the business model work, because we can, if we feed children dal one day, then we can spend more money on really good quality animal produce in a much, we're just talking about, there was a question about whether we feel that the future is plant-based from, yeah, I was just saying how the schools, part of the model is that the schools go plant-based twice a week, and then that enables us to really invest money in very good quality animal produce when we use it. I mean, we try and stay away from the politics of it, but we passionately believe in cooking what's around us, you know, and that supporting local producers, cooking what's outside your window, pulling together all the local energy and support that we can from food producers, farmers, cheesemakers, growers. You know, it's extraordinary the support that a local school will engender. You just have to ask, and we really try and support our schools to enable those kind of contributions. But yes, going more plant-based, which we have done, is definitely something that is fundamental to the way that we work.
And in a way that you're talking about making links and reducing kind of food miles, is that a school is a community hub at the center of community life for everybody in that area. And I mean, what feels transformational and incredibly exciting and important is that if you role model in the 80 schools that you're in, I was going to say healthy, but an exciting, passionate relationship with food that is using seasonal food, that is more plant-based, that is full of colour and spice, that you will be more than impacting just the children in your schools. Because, you know, for every person, if they're lucky, they have 8 or 9 people around them normally, so that you're extending your reach to thousands of people if you have 500 in the school. And that feels really exciting. And one of the things that I know, you know, is that food and mood and food and mental health is from children upwards to their parents and from parents downwards to their children, if you see what I mean. It's a collective business. And 50% of our diet is now ultra-processed food. And ultra-processed food not only affects, you know, obesity and our physical health, but it affects our microbiome, you know, our second brain. And 90% of serotonin, which is our kind of feel-good neurotransmitter, is made in the microbiome. So if you have a duff microbiome full of, you know, bad microbiota, I'm not very good at the language, rather than good microbiota, I think there's another word for them, but I don't know what it is, that really affects your capacity to think, to remember, to cognate, and to be happy.
I mean, there are studies done. It's quite hard to very specifically study the impact of only your diet at school, because obviously that's not all the food that a child eats. But there are very specific studies that have been done on concentration and attainment within where children are fed real food rather than prepackaged processed food. You know, even within just a school day. But I think you're right that you know, the ripple effect, which is also almost immeasurable. But one of the reasons to do the book was because parents come up to the chefs that we work with and say, well, my daughter told us about this thing that you cooked, or, you know, something that they've learnt to cook in one of their cookery lessons. And increasingly, we would really hope that they will start bringing a new culture of food into their homes to cook for their friends and family. And that, you know, it's so difficult for so many people, but it's not really when you pick it apart. It's just letting go of the fear of cooking something from scratch and just doing it. And once you've done it once, made spaghetti with tomato sauce at age 12 for your family, then suddenly everything seems possible. So it's just starting these little ripples out into the world to make things seem possible.
And
that's a lovely idea, sort of having hope and daring to overcome your fear. So Nicole, what is the fear about cooking? What do you think people's fear is the barrier to cooking?
I honestly think that and this is not baking or pastry, because that is, you know, this is with savory. I think if you go with your instincts, you're always able to have a dish that's edible. And this is what we teach kids. I guess the lesson over fire is all about instincts. And we cooked lamb over fire in a school. Me and Joe did it together, and the kids just touching the lamb over fire, things like this, which I think is going back to our instincts. And, you know, like color is really important. Sometimes you look at something and you know it's not right. So for example, peas, you know, just making sure that they look green. So I do think that, you know, it's just getting over the fear, as they say, and things don't normally go horribly wrong. Once again, it's not bread and baking, because things can go horribly wrong with bread and baking. But I just wanted to add as well that it's the education for us is important. And we started to do talks in secondary schools, and for secondary kids, habits are really hard to change. And a friend of mine who's a nutritionist, would start every talk by saying food is either medicine or poison, and you make the choice from a very young age. And this is what we try and do. It's not saying this is the best meal that you can ever have, but it's just giving you the choice to understand that if you're having something every day that's ultra processed for the next 10 years, then, it's not good for your body. And the choice, the relationship and the choice needs to happen from a very young age. So I think with food, obviously it's coming from a chef, but I do think it's one of the most important things that we need to learn in our life is to, have a good relationship with it, because it does fundamentally, I think, build you for the rest of your life.
And so someone kind of listening to you, that both of you are passionate about food, you're confident in cooking around food. And, I've got to pick my children up from school. I've had a hard day at work. I don't have time. I don't have a big budget. And, of course, I'm going to choose something that is simple and easy that I can just take off the shelf, because it's going to answer a lot of problems, getting food down my children, kind of not requiring a lot of work. But you have a response to that.
Yeah, buy the book. No, I'm just, no, I mean.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, there are so many days where I go home and I have cheese on toast, and everybody knows this. So, there are days where you just literally want to eat, and it's not about, but once again, it's the balance. And then there are days where, you meet up with friends and you want to cook something and share that. So once again, it's not specifically saying this is wrong or this is right. It's just understanding that, sometimes you can bulk out, and a lot of the recipes in our book is about, cooking once. Yeah, cooking once. And I think in lockdown, it was funny that all my chef friends resorted into doing this. Like, they'd do a big curry and divide it in 5 meals. And, if you're thinking, this is basically, I can have this with rice, or I can have this with, a bit of pasta, and I think thinking like that is the best way kind of to not, go home and buy a processed pizza on the way home, which, is not bad anyway, because we do it sometimes as well. It's just kind of knowing.
It's the balance, isn't it? It's that you can't, it's not perfection or everything has to be home cooked. It's finding a balance that there's enough, healthy, unprocessed foods. And one of the recipes I love that I've eaten of yours is your edible garden. Jo, do you want to look at these gorgeous pictures? Can you see them?
We were just talking about it this morning. It was originally a recipe. Yeah,
it's one of your star recipes, isn't
Noma. And then it became an adapted recipe in the Nopi kitchen, where you use sort of slow dry olives with very good bread, and you pound them together with some spices, and so they look like soil, and then you layer that on top of hummus, which becomes the dip, and then you plant little vegetables in it. And in the restaurant it might be tiny beetroot or something a bit complex and challenging, but at our schools it's often just carrot sticks or cucumber sticks. Or
I saw here there's radishes and carrots.
Exactly,
and
the children go in and pull. But you could even just do it with hummus. You plant your vegetables in the hummus, and the children come in and pull it out, and it's really fun and exciting and tactile. And but Nicole was saying this morning that sometimes the midday supervisors have to go and say to the children afterwards, just you can't eat the soil outside, you can only eat the soil in the kitchen. But yes, I think it's a great. I think, Nicole, we wrote in the book that that recipe was when you first saw that out on the tables and all the children came in and they were so excited and they were exploring. It was like this perfect moment where everything came together. It was vegetables and they were loving it, and it was on the tables and it was beautiful and exciting, and it's a lovely thing.
That is a really lovely thing. And so if someone's watching who is maybe a reluctant cook, but kind of knows that this is the direction to be heading in, but how would you ease their reluctance and amp up their optimism? I mean, I would say just buy the book and just do a few of the easiest recipes. But
one is to not try and be too ambitious, and do one new thing at a time on a plate, rather than trying to be really ambitious and do a whole dinner with lots of new things. So one of the things with the children is to talk about taking them on a journey. So when they start in September to where they get to at the end of the year, it's a very slow, gradual journey of taking away deep fried batter and adding in new flavors and very slowly dialing up the spices. So you're never frightening, and you're never creating fear, and I would say the same is when you're trying to approach new recipes. Do one thing and feel really great about it. Cook broccoli in a new way. Try roasting it. There's a recipe for roast broccoli in the oven with rosemary, and it's much simpler than putting a pan on and worrying about if you're over. You're literally switching it up, shove it, and
you just shove it in the oven.
It goes crispy and a bit bronzed, and the flavors are different. And, and you've done a new thing, and then with what you normally eat it with, it's totally fine. Yeah. So just one. We started for a bit in our family at home doing new food Saturdays, we called it. In fact, I'd like to return to it, where you just try one new thing once a week. It can be a slow thing.
And it's bite-sized.
Yes.
But I've got a question here from Foodage for Thought. Getting the kids inspired is key, so she completely agree with you. Do you think chefs in schools could teach the parents, carers, the recipes, as often it's their lack of confidence that is a barrier? I say this as a cooking teacher.
Well, do you want to talk about that, Nicole? Do you want me to?
No, go ahead.
Well, we did at one of the key schools that we established in. We were able to raise some money to build a cookery school that's become a community hub, and that I think I have a personal passion for starting classes for parents after school in the same way you might do cookery clubs for children, and they could either do it with their children, but at my own local primary, me and another mum started running classes for parents, because they came up and sidled up to us after the cookery club and said, "Oh, we don't know how to make fresh bread," or whatever. And it was such a joyful thing, because we're all just children inside and with the same ideas.
Yeah.
When you realize if someone can break it down and teach parents, and I think there's a huge opportunity. And if whoever it is wants to contact me, because I've started developing a curriculum for, like, a starter curriculum for parents that I think would be really easy to teach, almost like a Tupperware party, that there's always a confident parent cook in a school community, and you could just start a little club that anyone starts.
Foodage for Thought saying yes. So great. She's saying yes, she's going to contact you. But also, it's a bit like a book club, isn't it? That it's very therapeutic. You coming together, however irregularly or regularly, that you get to know each other in a different way. And often from a kind of therapeutic perspective, you talk more openly when you're doing something physical, when you're not eyeballing each other. And one of the big difficulties and demands in life now is this sense of isolation and disconnection from community. So coming together and cooking together and making a mess of it together and having a massive success together also opens up to other conversations where you can talk about being fed up with this or that or the other, and you get to know each other in a very unthreatening way, which can be
I think
really
so.
important.
Oh, sorry, carry on, Nicole.
No, go ahead. No,
Nicole.
go ahead. I just agree that you when you cook with people, you kind of connect as well.
And I think eating with people, food isn't just physical health, good food. I think gathering around a homemade, however simple, the joy in the connection, and particularly multi-generational when kids are so much on screen, so busy, just taking half an hour and all sitting down and eating the same thing at the same time is so, I mean, important beyond just the plate of food.
And I mean, to add in, that plate of food is a memory. So our memory is ignited by sight, sound, touch, and smell. So if you have a memory as a child of your mum's tomato, pasta, and I can't even say it, spaghetti with tomato sauce, and 30 years later you make spaghetti with tomato sauce, a memory that has been completely sort of hidden away for decades literally bursts into the front of your mind, and you remember how small you were, the kitchen you were in, the tasting of the spaghetti with the tomato sauce. So those memories are lifelong, that live in you and connect you with the people who were around the table and making the food with you, which supports you. I do this obviously around grief. So I've done a whole thing called a memory kitchen, where people are making their recipes of people that have died, and in making the recipes they're transported back in time. And the love never dies with people that we've loved, although they may have died. I'm speaking so badly, but if you get what I'm saying, that it keeps the relationship alive.
Absolutely. It's a magnificent thing, food.
So
yeah,
it is a magnificent thing. So what would you hope if someone is going to buy feed? Well, tell me where they can find you. Tell me where they can find Feed Your Family, and what do you think they'll get from buying
Nicole,
it?
you go first.
One thing.
So hopefully they'll get the journey. They'd be a bit. Hopefully they'll be more experimental with what they cook at home, and they can get the joy that we did. Well, by creating it. I think, like I said, it's been 5 years in the making, but there's so many school chefs that have contributed, and people, and the community that have made the journey. So hopefully the reader sees that and in some way feels part of it as well. With where to find us, Joe, do you want to?
I mean, it should be in every bookshop. We hope that it's whether it's online or call up your local bookshop and find out, and please order it. Have a look at it. Have a good click through on Amazon. If you just click on it, even if you don't buy it, you can have a look at some of the recipes inside. On our website, we're selling it directly, chefsandschools.org.uk, where you can also donate or find out more about the project. And I would say what I'd like more than anything is just for people to find a new relationship with their families through food, just a moment of connection.
That's lovely. A way of loving within your family.
Definitely.
Thank you both so much. I think this is a wonderful book. And I think your Chefs in School projects is incredibly important, and that important for our children, who are, of course, the adults of the future. So it really matters. So
thank you.
I salute you both. Send you both lots of love.
Thank you so much for having
me. Thank you so much. Bye.
Lots of love.